fantastic. I was sitting up in the van trying to check them all out. But when they changed even police officers at the borderline, and they had all this stuff coming, lights were red and we went right through them.
I really felt special. On-ramps were blocked off. I remember walking through an airport and being spit on. Like we were the one, like I was responsible for the war in Vietnam, and it's like it wounded me to the point that I still remember that like it was yesterday. This morning when we left, I had a catharsis, letting go of some of that, but it was a good feeling to let go of a lot of that hurt and pain.
Grande honor flight with veterans from Korea and Vietnam. God bless our veterans. God bless America.
Stop right there when you see those boots and a uniform coming your way. Get off your cell phone and look 'em in the eye and drop that old briefcase. If you want to see what a hero looks like, this might be your chance. Before you go back home to your safe little world, y'all, don't you understand? These are the men and women that keep us living safe inside our homes. And if you took 1 minute, your head would be spinning to see the things that they know. So stop what you're doing.
I got some juvenile trouble at age 16 and was arrested for stealing hubcaps from the La Posta parking lot. His name was Judge Scoggins. He turned to me and said, "Mr. Want, you're 16 years old." I said, "Yes, Your Honor." He said, "Do you know anything about football?" I said, "Yes, Your Honor." "Do you know what the option play is?" I said, "Yes, Your Honor." He said, "Well, I'm going to offer you the option play. Option number 1, we have a wonderful school in a little town called Springer." He didn't tell me it was a reform school for boys. He said, "Option number 2, when I drop the gamble on my bench, your father can take you to see the nearest military recruiter to drop the gamble." My father said, "Jimmy, come on, we're going to go see the Navy chief." I participated in the repatriation of our prisoners of war. We escorted them halfway to Clark Air Force Base in the Philippines. My other memorial event with pickup of Gemini 6A, and I was airborne, and my job was visual as well as some of the electronic equipments, and I saw the capsule before the chutes opened, and then the chutes opened and we followed it down to the drink, and the ship picked the capsule up with the astronauts, and that was the first televised event of a capsule landing. I was in an E-2B Hawkeye. That's the one with the rotodome, the saucer on top.
I wound up in a destroyer. Most of the time was spent on what they call the gun line, offshore from Vietnam. And we had spotters inside Marine or Army spotters, and they would call the bridge, tell them coordinates of where they wanted the rounds to hit. I was a petty officer in charge of what they called them merry-go-round. On top of the ship, on the deck, there are the guns. Right below that was a merry-go-round. So the bridge would tell me, we need 2 rounds of illumination and 3 rounds of explosive or whatever, and we would load it. You could work in shorts and tennis shoes. You know, you're in there, it's nothing but steel, and plus the firing, little ship that the Vietnamese civilians had, we had to man 50 caliber machine guns, and another guy they would walk up and down the ship on each side. We were not allowed to let them get close because they could sabotage or whatever, you know.
Don't you know who you just walked past with your headphones in today? You're all concerned with your own little world just outside the terminal gate. They're coming home from a whole nother world that we know nothing about. So the least we can give them's a standing ovation. It's time they hear us shout. These are the men.
I was coaching on B-52. And in Guam, it's what they call it 11-day war. We flew 11 straight, non-stop, for 12, 14 hours a day to bomb Vietnam. See, our fuel was under the ground, so the whole ramp, the flight line and all that is full of gas, AP4. We had a plane that was, the SAM hit it. He was coming in, he already knew he was going to fall, so he put the control column up, and the airplane went on the other side of the base, and we couldn't go out there and help them and all that stuff, so they burned. And then the next day, the locals scrounging everything they could get because they can settle back to Uncle Sam.
These are the men and women that keep us living safe inside our homes. And if you took 1 minute, your head would be spinning to see the things that they know. So stop what you're doing, walk up to him, and tell them how much it means.
You know, my first 2-3 months in Saigon, we saw explosions in the town, in the bars and whatever. You know, they set their explosives, they walk away. They pick a place where there's a lot of GIs. You get your order saying you're leaving, waiting for a civilian aircraft to get there. They were shooting mortar rounds from the hangar to the airplane. They told us in 2s to run to the airplane. He actually took off pretty fast. Not a sound inside the airplane. Not until the pilot said, "Relax, soldiers, we're out of Vietnam airspace." Then everybody started yelling and screaming. Camp Pelham, Korea, was 10 miles from the DMZ. Even there, we drew hostile fire pay. Sometimes we used to go on patrol with them. It was an area they called no man's land between north and south, and anybody in that area was free game. People used to get killed there, but they never reported it. They would report it as maybe an accident or whatever, but some of us knew better. They had an incident at the DMZ. One officer got hacked by one of the North Koreans. And boy, let me tell you, at 2 o'clock in the morning, sirens went off, real ammunition. And instead of going south, everybody's going north. Panama, I was there when Canal Zone was territorial of the United States. So when the Canal Zone reverted back to Panama, they were really not happy about it. The civilians working for the Canal Zone made a lot of money. He also gave some of the areas that we hold, like Fort Amador. And there were some areas where were occupied by Americans living there. It was a housing area. The Panamanians were going to control that. So we had to train the Panamanian soldiers that they just couldn't go around and arresting people. Like there was a lot of riots. When they were rioting, the people were protesting. People like me that spoke Spanish, they would send us in to get information and get intelligence.
They sent us over on the DMZ in Vietnam to train guys that they should have never let go before they got replacements for them. So here we were doing their job of being out there in the bush. We surveyed ground surveillance radar. The Koreans that we had with us helped us develop this nest up on trees where we could work off of there. And we'd be up there for 3 days. We were spying on the Ho Chi Minh Trail. They decided we had to go back to Korea because that was getting hot. The Pueblo had just been captured. They were planning to send a 31-man assassination team to South Korea from North Korea, and they were going to kill the president of South Korea. And we could set up the radar. We kept hearing things that didn't make sense. We had tank tracks that we were hearing on the DMZ. This valley between North Korea and us, it was full of trees and nobody could have tanks coming through there. I found out later after I got out They knew about it all the time. They never told us one. They were digging tunnels under us. You started putting two and two together and things just didn't jive. What we're reporting, then ignoring. One day they decided they were going to send one of their spies over, and they had a patrol of North Koreans. Here about midnight, they heard the North Koreans just chattering up a storm. And sure enough, as soon as they got them in range, they started throwing hand grenades and claymores. The North Koreans didn't know what was going on, so they started firing all over the place. In the morning, I had to go up to that guard post. We could see right across the valley, and they were piling the dead North Koreans on top of the sandbags, kind of like trophies, like, look what you did. The next morning, the North Koreans were scrambling around trying to pick up equipment and so that they couldn't have evidence that they had been there and done what they did. I cried. It meant a lot to me to go to the wall and to see. His name is Gabe Madrid. We were in Korea together. He got sent to Vietnam in friendly fire. I'm still here, and he's not.
For a brief while, I worked on the bunker buster program at White Sands. So to see the bunker busters do what they did in Iran I was like, okay. So Desert Storm was, for me, eye-opening. Commander calls me into a tent, tells me I have 3 days to get to know an entire platoon, what their capabilities were, how good they were at their job. I knew nothing about them. They told me in 3 days, we are making the breach into Kuwait. You're responsible for everybody else's life, not just yours. You got to bring them guys back to their family. And that's the key thing. That's the key thing on your mind. You got to bring them guys back. Combat changes you. It separates the men from the boys. It lets you know whether you got the training to handle what you need to do. War changes you. You don't really, when you go to war, you know you're in war, but it doesn't hit you until somebody you know gets killed. Until somebody you know gets killed, then that changes things. Your outlook changes. Your attitude changes. You see a lot of stuff you aren't supposed to see. And you gotta figure out a way to wipe it out, push it somewhere, and deal with it without issues, but it will always be there. Once you see somebody blown in half or hit with a bomb or families burn up to pieces, babies, you can't wipe that out. It's gonna be there with you. But you gotta keep rolling, can't stop.
From the time I left Vietnam, I had tried not to carry a gun anymore, but I always wanted to fly. The only way I was able to do so was to go back in the Army. For the next almost 20 years of flying, I managed to stay away from guns and wound up flying Cobras. So for the first time in 20 years, I wound up pulling the trigger again. And that's kind of what caused this one to be written. Angry Flight. One more flight and you head for the skies, helmet hooked in, cannon follows your eyes. With guns at 12 and missiles at 6, you reach in your bag in search of some tricks. Drop at velocity, never exceed. Your hands are sweating and you don't want to bleed. Fast as hell and 5 foot high. Nap of the earth is how you must fly. Jammers on, you set missiles aglow. Then shoot at the enemy while flying down low. You search the horizon through heads-up display and send 2 more missiles on their deadly way. Radar is tracking and your guns are hot as you roll to the right and line up your shot. Their tracers are coming straight in at you, so you dive and you bank and you head for the blue. Rockets are flying with explosions of light as you push yourself forward and speed through the night. To fly like a bird was your only desire, but now you bring death at the end of a wire. Night vision equipped, improving your flight. How many souls will you take on this night? Blocking your mind, not wanting to feel. With finger on trigger, you pierce some more steel. Arriving on target, they fire at you. Switching rockets to Ripple, you know what to do. The radio starts screaming and your heart starts to pound. Death and destruction are found all around. Your soul is shaking and you wish you could know if one more sortie you truly can go. They say the free world is counting on you, but war is such madness, you know this is true. Yet you've proved once again our power and might, and hope this will be your last angry flight.
And every night you drift off to sleep. They're all across the planet, making sure you're free. Stop when you see a uniform.
I'm an old obstetrical nurse. No one in the military wanted to have these babies but me.
But an incident happened to me that wasn't my fault, and they shipped me to flight school. Now, you had to be in 5 years to go to flight school. I said, that's wonderful. And then I went to Alaska. There was my punishment. I used to fly the B-29 5 bombers we had and sit in the bombardier seat, you know, and drop off food to these guys and everything else. So I saw the Korean casualties. And we used to get them in. And on the surgical floor where I worked, we get them in and they put the gun in their mouth, forget to shut their mouth, and blow their throats out instead. And those that were drug addicts and all didn't want to come home. I got orders for Thule, Greenland. It's below 70 degrees zero, and it's all ice. We never had fallen snow. It would blow off the ice cap at 130 mile an hour winds. Humongous piles of snow. So you couldn't go anywhere, no in or out. Just spying on the Russians, because there sure was nothing else. I was the chief nurse up there. So I got the nurses together. What do you do while you're here? I haven't seen a single nurse on the floors. I said, you party all night and sleep all day? She says, yeah, sort of. I said, well, I have some news for you. You're gonna put a uniform on and you're gonna go to work. So I put them to work. They didn't like that.
This major came out of the operating room at 12 noon, and I said, what does she do here? I'm working 12 hours a day and she's going home at noon. And they said, well, she's the anesthetist. And I said, and what on earth do they do? Well, they put people to sleep. So I went to anesthesia school. And they said, what do you do in the Air Force? And I said, well, I'm a nurse anesthetist. What do they do? What do they do? And I says, well, we sit on a hard stool and pass gas all day.
Stop when you see a uniform. God bless the USA.
Standing on his porch in a military uniform. I saw him limp as he tried to raise his flag. He needed help. As he leaned on his cane, I introduced myself.
The first day that I got there, it wasn't too nice because you're getting off the plane, right? And there's another plane putting in the body bags. I was our RTO, radar operator. Gardner, he was the first lieutenant. You had trainings at RTO, so you're gonna be one of my RTOs. And I looked at everybody, and then everybody looked at me like, what is this guy doing at CP? Because you go through the ranks from squad to platoon, and then you get to the CP. And then I come in, I go directly to the CP. So can you imagine their looks? We used to go out and search and destroy missions. But actually we're guinea pigs. They send us where the enemy was, so the enemy can go around and find us. We'll send these guys over here, and then we'll get Bravo and Alpha on the flanks. My kid sister that wrote me every week, told her that whatever I write is completely different. Just tell Mom, I'll be back. Yesterday I was telling the young kids, smile kids, enjoy life. That's what it's all about. What we did or what the other generations did. It's for you guys that are coming up.
I got an assignment to Japan, got out in September of 1968. I wanted to go back in, get to Vietnam, checked in. They said, we have no record of you. And I wound up with in the 12th Reconnaissance Intelligence Technical Squadron at Tan Son Nhut. We processed film, and some of that was a little ragged, pre-strike and post-strike imagery. That'll leave a lasting impression in your mind if you have actually seen the before and after. Did some of the imagery of Saigon in its closing days. How was it when I came back from Vietnam? Not good. It wasn't pleasant. Leave it at that. I lost more friends to Agent Orange than I have to combat. Absolutely, I'm glad I came. I had second thoughts about it. Wasn't sure how I was going to deal with the memorials. Get a grip on it and go cleanse your soul. I'm not sure mine's cleansed yet, but it's definitely better than it was when I got here, before I got here.
Most of my TET experience was out in the boondocks. We weren't back in the cities as they were trying to leave. So they were trying to use the Ho Chi Minh Trail, trying to get their troops back out. We were real busy during that area. I wanted to let people know about the Montagnard tribes, and they're very poorly treated by the Vietnamese. They liked to work with special forces because we worked and lived with them. And we'd have a 12-man SF team, then anywhere from 200 to maybe 250 Montagnard tribesmen. They were great soldiers because they lived in those mountains, they knew the trails, and they were very loyal to us. And so the big higher up had their own ideas of how to use them. And that if there was going to be a bad something going on, they wanted to bring the Montagnards in and use them because they didn't have to use them as body count. And of course, at the big headquarters, that was a big number. You didn't have to count Montagnards, only Americans. And then, of course, after the crash and everything happened and the Americans all left, they were badly handled by the Vietnamese, particularly the North Vietnamese.
We had our radar unit off the border of Vietnam. The radar and stuff was in a large deuce-and-a-half truck, and the antennas and the stuff were on top and things, but we were mobile, we moved. I was getting ready to leave. I wasn't man enough to go say, I'm leaving. And that was tough, and that hit me much worse later on. It was a very emotional thing for me. We were close, everybody was close. I was just about getting ready to go, but I happened to see a name on there I knew on the wall. I wondered if the rest of the crew was there. So I started walking the thing, trying to read them all. That one just happened to stand out to me. I was hoping that I didn't see any names, but I did.
What happened with me when I was a kid, back in the old days when they had the TV broadcasting signal in the mornings, right? They'd present colors, and it was the Marines. I'm going to be a Marine. So I did a year in Vietnam. Since I was an admin clerk, I didn't have to be out in the field. Something happened, if they hit our perimeter, got us together, said, okay, reactionary, get out there and go do something, right? Or ambushes set up tonight, you. And so we'd go out and set up ambushes and stuff, but it wasn't like the guys in the bush.
What do you think young people should know about Vietnam?
We didn't lose. We just weren't allowed to do our jobs.
When I asked about his leg, he said it's no big deal. I got hurt while I worked at a place called Pork Chop Hill. He said, all gave some and some gave all. Proud to take a stand when duty called. The currency of freedom is a soldier's blood. Son, I ain't no hero, just doing my job.
I was with the 12th Evac Hospital Battalion. One thing that I remember, they woke us up about 2 or 3 in the morning, and we had to run out into the hospital to help them because there was a mass casualty. Choppers coming in with injured Americans as well as Vietnamese. Not so good to see people losing their legs, their limbs. I think probably one of the really saddest things that I saw, this soldier that was a medic was taking pills from the hospital, so he was getting high on them. Apparently he had been drinking that night and he took pills, he overdosed. So he those are the casualties that I saw. Another guy, he was one of the cooks going to bring in a delivery. The truck driver had backed up towards the ramp. And for some reason, this guy didn't move in with enough time or something. He got slammed between the wall, and obviously not all casualties were from the war itself. My feeling when I was in Vietnam about midway, I had been there forever and I was going to stay there forever. That's the way I felt. I like group settings like the song that hit hard. I did stop and look at one of them, and I prayed for them, for their souls. That's what I thought was a good thing to do.
I was shot down in a helicopter. When that helicopter hit, I rolled out. And the other guys it rolled on them. So I rolled out far enough. And then on my second round, I was in a Chinook, and we were carrying a huge sling load of artillery shells, what we call the Willie Peter, which is white phosphorus. When we were coming in to drop it off, we were above the tree levels, and we get hit with a RPG, and they knocked out the turbine on the right-hand side of that helicopter, and then we crashed into the palm trees. And on May 17th, after my friend was killed, I was wounded in a place called Oshaw Valley. I was on point as we were going up through the jungle area, and as I approached the fence, all hell broke loose. We were on the front, and as I fell down, I was laying down, I could feel dirt hitting between my legs. And I turned around like this, and I looked up, and they were in the trees shooting down at us. The next thing I know, I was getting hit in the leg and in the foot. Of course, the medics came, pulled me out, moved to Kushini Barracks in Japan. I spent 5.5 months there. I had to learn almost how to walk. I had about half a foot, maybe 2/3 left. Before I got hit, I was firing in this area. I was like on the ground, and I was just shooting because it was bad. And this guy came around by the tree, and I unloaded on him, and I took his life, and it was a matter of survival, me or you. And over the years, got to thinking, did he ever have a family?
Didn't pass the test to get in the Army. Walked across the street to the Air Force and took the same test. So this one was wrong, that one was wrong, so I used different answers. Got in. They had 4 T-28s take off, and they was loaded max, and they never showed up. We got to checking it. The Navy informed us that they seen 4 of them out there in the ocean just unload everything right into the water. General Westmoreland said from then on, there had to be an American for every 4 planes that took off. And I'd rode with one guy enough that he would let me fly. I slid one down the side of a mountain, and them guys had no idea what it was. Well, that was one of the first things the old man that taught me how to fly. You may never need it, but if you do, you can get to the ground quick. And there was a Marine on the radio. He just told them Vietnamese pilots, get down here on the ground. We're getting run over. So I said, can I have the plane, please? And I took him down, and next thing, old boy said, thanks. With that wall, there's people that shouldn't have been. They never got the chance that I did. I still thank the old boy upstairs for making sure I come back.
And I didn't want to kill anybody, really, so I didn't want to go that. So I volunteered for Dust Off. Dust Off was all volunteers. We couldn't mount any weapons of any sort. The figures show we evacuated 900,000. Of course, you don't know what's going to happen. I always used to say a prayer and say, give me a guardian angel. Even when I shot down, I never had anybody injured on my helicopter. I was flying around, and then I hear my crew chief in back going, oh, shit. And I go, what do you mean, oh, shit? Because we could hear them being hit, the bullets hitting the aircraft. And he says, they blew a hole in our engine oil reservoir. And I go, how long have we got? And he said, 3 minutes. We landed way out in the field, and we see these people coming out of the tree line. And we go, well, is that good or bad? We didn't know until they got close enough. I saw it was a U.S. It was 35, 40 minutes from the time they were wounded till they were in the hospital a lot of times. Less than an hour. They call it the golden hour. If you can get them within an hour of being injured and into the hospital, that's when their survival rate was up. And the one thing, after a while, you had to turn your emotions off, because otherwise you couldn't really deal with every day. You'd see bodies in
every form of disrepair, blown up, whatever. When we got back, a lot of times they would have to pull up all the floor panels because blood would be going down in it, and it would get on the push-pull tubes, and they had to clean all that. I've had blood running down into my chin bubble. There's times when I've had to go into a confined area and cut banana trees with my rotor blades to get down into it. We only had so many hours we could legally fly, and if we hit that, we just quit logging hours. But yeah, 1,204 hours, and right at about 1,500 missions. So others may live is another motto.
I went to cook school, and they told us that every other class is going to Vietnam. Here's your papers, and I opened them up, and it said, you're going to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. Well, then one day I was sitting, and a soldier walks by me, and he recognized my name, Teufel, and he goes, devil. Well, Teufel is the German name for devil. And he looked at me, and he says, I'm going to send you to Germany. And that's how I got to Germany. I'm very glad that I went on that honor flight. I didn't think I deserved it. Even at 79 years old, it changed my life. I was completely wrong in this respect. I said, I don't want to show up. And some Vietnam veteran said, what the hell are you doing here? And I know that was wrong when I talked to the commander. And he said, did you raise your hand? I said, yes, I did. That's all that mattered. You were just one of the lucky ones that didn't have to go over there. I was welcomed with open arms. I didn't have to be in Vietnam to be accepted. Just raising your hand was enough for them.
Sent me to LZ Sally. And we had an underground treatment facility because we had a helipad out there, and helicopters were bringing the wounded. We'd go out and get them, bring them in. And we're going down, and I hear these guys talking, and I says, hey, you know, I got 3 arms. Has anybody got an extra arm? I looked at this guy, and I'm thinking, this can't be real. And we walk down, and I see a guy hand an arm over. And I look at him, I says, what are they doing? He goes, you got to have so many body parts to put in a body bag before we can ship it out. I'm thinking to myself, 19 years old, I'm thinking, holy crap, I got a year of this stuff. We would also go on what they call med caps. We go out into villages and stuff and try and help the people. And we went to some school, polio shots we was trying to give them, I think. But it's just hard as heck because they don't know you. And they don't trust you, and so you got to try and find one that you can gain that trust. And that picture that's in the Thinkadell hat on or whatever, we had these 2 ladies, when you take your laundry, they sit around, squat down, and they're smoking, and they be, cháu lục, một cô đại bà mắt mắt thì ngu ngọt đảo. Got them laughing, so they a little more trust, and they would come up, and I'd give them the shots. They tried to hit us one night, and they overshot our LZ, and they hit the village outside. Follow the MPs out there and see if we can provide any support. Next thing I know, I look back like this, and they're carrying people out and just throw them in a pile. That was bad enough, but they brought out a little girl. Looked like she's probably like 3 years old, and had one leg blown off, and just threw her up in a pile like a piece of trash. When you get down in there, to me, it's kind of an eerie feeling. It's kind of stupid, but you ask yourself, why them and not me?
Did you know people on the wall?
Just the ones that had tags that we put in body bags. I mean.
Ended up over there in July during the Tet Offensive. Oh, that was like a nightmare because I mean I look back at that and there was like everything, you know, rockets and bombs, and it was so dark, but yet you knew that a lot of stuff was going on. A lot of my friends died then, and it was just like, well, I just saw him this morning. Well, he's not coming back, you know, and that was something that you had to deal with because, I mean, you know, and you had to deal with on your own because everybody else was feeling the loss of some sort or other. How do you console when you yourself are in a world of hurt or pain? It was like hell on earth. I guess that's the best way I could describe it, like hell on earth, because it's so traumatic. But yet, you know, you just had to work through it. You had to do what you had to do. You had to order the supplies. You had to bring it in. You had to distribute it. There were things that needed to be done. The Vietnam Wall, I know what you can do with a piece of paper and draw the names out and so forth. There's so many names that I don't want to go there with that. I'll go see it, I'll walk it, and I'll remember. I don't need to rehash that. Let it rest. Let it rest.
The second time was not a good time. I had made first lieutenant by this time. Second day out, the captain came on the 1MC and says, we're going to change directions by 2 degrees. We'll be landing in Da Nang. We were told that we would be getting new rifles, and we went ashore with no weapons. Young Lance Corporal come up to me and say, Lieutenant, you got to talk to somebody. They got us out there on the line and we don't have any weapons. That was really scary. And then the next day, we got our brand new M16s that were supposed to work. And then each Marine got to fire 10 rounds into a 55-gallon drum, and now you're qualified. I guess it was called the Battle of Naktavak. It was when the peace talks were started. North Vietnamese were sending down a division of Army regulars. I was sent down with my 2 artillery pieces. They wanted to know which way that division was going to go. Was it going to go south or was it going to go north? They needed a win for the peace talks. As it turned out, they went north to Kem Duc. It was about 5 clicks from where we were. They took over that base too. The Army Special Forces were running a school there where they would bring in Vietnamese from the villages, train them, and then send them back to the villages. At least that was the idea of it. It was about 85% Viet Cong. I don't like to say this, but I feel I was earmarked by a group of the CIDG that were sent out to help us. I think when the North Vietnamese came down, they contacted the CIDG group, and the CIDG led them into our position. And they said, don't shoot, friendlies, and there's CIDG, and then they were in there, and they were all over us. And the interpreter, I recognized his voice, and I knew that he had put a grenade in the hole, and we were overrun. We were outnumbered many. I was second command of the hill. There was an Australian captain who was in charge of the hill. He had about 120 what they called Nungs. They were Chinese descent. I think of the 120, 40 of them walked off the hill. 39 Marines that I had, 14 were killed and 20 were wounded. I count myself as one of the 20. 2 Navy Crosses that night, my Marines. 1 bad night, 1 very good day today. It's been a good day. So we had a lot of rubbings to do. As it turns out, Robert Lopez that was helping me was the same name as one of my young troops. I had 13 on that wall.
One day I noticed that Purple Heart he wore. He said it's what they give you when you're wounded in a war. A grenade landed at my feet on that awful day. I took some shrapnel, but it took my buddy away. He said, all gave some and some gave all.
And I believed in what we were doing over there. I believed in all the things my country told me. Growing up, my heroes were guys like Buddy Murphy, Chuck Yeager. Greatest hero, though, was my older brother. He was the first airborne ranger I ever knew. I wanted to be just like him. We got to Vietnam, of course, the heroes in the unit were the pilots and the crew chiefs and the door gunners. And I kept begging, let me be a door gunner. It was the only way I was going to get into the war, I thought. When you're flying as a door gunner, the only thing that's actually inside the aircraft is your butt and your heels. And the rest of you is pretty much hanging out the door. We were flying over the Ai Drang Valley, which, if you can imagine, flying over all these plush, green, forested areas, blue skies, and white puffs of clouds hanging in the valleys. It's just an amazing, beautiful sight. And then you look down, and in your hands is this machine gun. And the incongruity of such beautiful, peaceful looking area, and then you realize you're here for one reason and one reason only. And over the headsets in our helmet. Just as we were going in on what is called a gun roll, where the pilots are kind of diving on the target, they started playing Let the Good Times Roll. And it struck me as so funny that I fell over backwards into the aircraft. My feet went up in the air, and the machine gun was between my legs, and I was still firing. And I'm lucky I didn't blow my feet off. We did some of the initial recon for what was known as Operation Ivory Coast. Special Forces raided a POW camp in North Vietnam. When they got there, no POWs were found. They were there, but like everything else our government does, they're very slow. From the time the original recon was done to the time they actually tried to get them was almost a year. When we got ambushed, my best friend died in my arms there. I managed to get around him, so did the rest of the group, but I was totally lost after that. It took a few days to find my way back. They told me, you're going home, kid, because really after Jamie got killed, I kind of lost it a little bit. You know, I think they saved my life by sending me home. Or from a chapter called A Season in Hell. This one's called The Jungle. We the young grow old and wise in jungle ways. Our nights are numbered, and so are our days. With silver wings upon our chest, we believe we're America's best. In camouflage fatigues and black beret, wondering will we win or lose the day. Our formation coils its serpentine path to avoid the bullet, the punji and gaff, walking in silence, fearing to talk. Young soldiers at war, our mouths taste like chalk. In search of an enemy we've seen time after time through the cover and concealment of tree line and vine. Some say he's the enemy, some say that he's not. My feet hurt so much, they're covered with rot. Fear begins with fire and fight, consumes your soul through a terror-filled night. My brother is wounded, and my heart's filled with pain. He screams in the darkness and calls on God's name. Covered with blood, I try not to cry. I watch his eyes close as his soul passes by. Too many men mine eyes have seen die, but the Lord loves heroes. And heroes can cry. So why, dear Lord, why can't I?
All these years you've been my friend. He gave that Purple Heart to me. He said, all gave some and some gave all. Proud to take a stand when duty calls. The currency of freedom is a soldier's blood. Son, I ain't no hero. Son, I ain't no hero. Son, I ain't no hero. Just doing my job.
Reading the letters, it just caught me cold. I never expected that.
Made a decision many years ago to stand up for our nation, to fight for your home.
These kids from all over and people from all over that don't even know you were wishing you everything, you know.
We never will forget. You fought for freedom, honor, knowing what was right. Now it's time for you to take flight.
I
I may not know your name, but I know what you have done. You stepped forward when others held back. You endured hardships most of us will never fully understand. You gave your time, your strength, and your heart to protect the freedoms we hold dear. For that, I am forever grateful. Please know that your sacrifice is never forgotten. Because of you, we live in peace. Because of you, we have hope. With deepest gratitude, Johnny.
That probably was the cherry on top of the cake. That's probably a bunch of, grade school children, coloring little cards or whatever. And I picked one up for my daughter, like, how'd they do that? I'm like, holy cow.
Oh, that was special. My granddaughter made this. And she mailed it for me. And my eldest son, he's a Navy SEAL, made me feel that they were proud of me.
Thank you for your unwavering commitment to our nation. You are a true hero, and we are forever grateful for all you have done.
I was a great-granddaughter to write a letter to me. She's 4. And that's when I closed mine up. I've read them 2 or 3 times since I got home. But
Fought for freedom, honor, knowing what was right. This is one small thank you for fighting that good fight. Freedom, honor, knowing what was right. But now it's time for you to take flight.
Simplify on the duffel, pride where the boots meet the ground. It's a bull under buckle, Hail Mary in a huddle. America is my hometown. The big bold stripes, the brightest of stars, land of the free, 'cause of those brave hearts.
And I want to say, welcome home.
America is my hometown. America is my hometown.
I was thrilled, but I got ill and I had to postpone. But the remarkable thing was that I got a call. How are you? How are you doing? This is the honor flight in Las Cruces. We've got you on the list for the next flight. Israelis, can you make it? Yes, of course I can. The follow-up from your organization, to me, it made me feel special. You cared. And that feeling carried on all this trip. I got flown into Oakland, California. In my head, I was expecting a John Wayne parade. It wasn't that way at all. Couldn't understand why they were saying what they were saying. See, my generation grew up with war stories. We went to movies. We saw these movie stars in war movies, and they come back and there were parades and there were flags, confetti on the streets. And when we got called to go to Vietnam, and we were there to give it all we had, when we came back, we thought that's the way it was going to be. A large number of veterans feel the same way. They were hurt, destroyed mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and it's taken this long to heal. No matter what a city does, no matter what our organizations do for you, that feeling for me never went away. It was just a patch job. Until I went to Washington, D.C. with this organization. Because the feeling I got from the moment they called me and say, are you feeling better? Are you okay? That day I knew you all cared. The day we went to Washington, D.C. and we lined up and you stood there and you told us your feelings and you recognized what we went through, it made me feel welcome. And to top it all, the song that was sung, that said it all to us. That's how I felt about the trip. It was not a patch job. It was not a cure-all, but it put us back together.
When I had been to the Vietnam War before, I just walked through it every time I went, but this time was different because I saw those guys standing around, and just tears coming down their eyes. Wish I did too, but I don't know the word I want to use. It sort of hit me that I wasn't alone. Especially the song that you guys sang right before the Vietnam War, that really hit home. Because when I came back from Vietnam, we landed in San Francisco International Airport. Back then, you had to get off the plane, and then you had to walk to the terminal. But as we got off and we started walking, we started hearing all this noise, baby killers throwing stuff at us. Mission 19 lifted up my spirit.
We was not welcomed at all. It was baby killers, every bad thing you could call. It's something you didn't expect. You definitely shed some water. It was great. Everybody in this part of the country that's kin to me was there.
I never said anything to anybody. In fact, I knew there was even another helicopter pilot when I was working at the airline in Las Vegas. I didn't even talk to him about it. No, this is good. It's good to get it out a little bit. I probably said more now than I've ever said in 50 years. Yeah, I guess that's why I don't talk about it too much. That's the way I get. It's nice to be able to feel things a little more, because there was a long time there, I mean, nothing was funny. It was just, hardest part was not having emotions for a long time.
I've been there 2 times before, but I never experienced anything like underflight. That was the cream of the cream, especially when we went to the World War II Memorial and the choppers were flying over and they were doing wing overs and saluting us. It just blew my mind. I can die tomorrow and be thankful that I got to go. You finally got your thank you. It made you feel at home. You're welcome home. This is home.
Freedom ain't free. It came with a cost. I hit my knees. All the ones we lost. And I thank God, yeah, for those big bold stripes, the brightest of stars. Land of the free, 'cause of those brave hearts.
Thank you so much for what you've done to answer our nation when it needed you, and we are proud of you, we thank you, and we all say welcome home.
America is my hometown. America is my hometown. Yes, it is.
There for a short time at Fort Lewis, they taxied the plane to the back of the airport and put us on buses with armed guards to bring us back up because there had been some rioting and some shots fired. This is great because as we came in today, my goodness, people were cheering. And
you know, coming from a war and then going to a war in the streets, that was a challenge in my life.
You know, those little trolleys in San Francisco, somebody calls it, you guys are so stupid, it's no wonder that we're losing the war.
The protest was so strong in Southern California that they tried to prevent us from getting to the ship to go to Vietnam. That's when we had to get the police escort to get through the city. My wife said, are the doors locked? 5-year-old daughter, 3-year-old son in the back seat.
I was very strict when my kids were growing up. When my kids were about 30-something years old, I had to tell them that I was sorry for everything they did. And I told them to forgive me. You know what, Dad? Whatever you did back then, it's fine with us. We still love you. Especially yesterday, when I got off the plane. I think we were waiting for that welcome home that we all deserve as veterans, as brothers. And it hit me right here, like it hit you today. Remember? So I just want to say thank you for your service, brothers, and welcome home.
We got off at Dallas and we were looking for our next gate. And this one guy kept calling us baby killers. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm 20 years old. I went over at 19. 20 years old, I was a medic, and I was proud of what I did over there. And I'm like, baby killers? What are you talking about? And then we walked farther. This other guy looks at us and goes, like he wanted to spit on us. And I'm not a violent person because I'm kind of small. But I walked up to him. I said, sir, I said, that's something you don't even want to think about. And we walked away. And when we did, the guy who was with me, he said, Sarge, maybe we should just go in the bathroom and change clothes. I said, no. I said, I'm proud of what we did. I said, look, we both made it back. How many people did we have to put in body bags that didn't come back? I said, excuse my language, I said, the hell with these damn people. We went on home. I just want to thank Honor Flight. They kind of helped me get rid of about 55 years worth of anger inside me for when I came home from Vietnam and how I was treated. And then once we went to Honor Flight, I was kind of skeptical, but my God, we went to Houston, it was great. We went to Washington, D.C., it was even better. I was amazed. But then the best one, of course, is when we came home, and then you really felt like you got rid of the anger. And I just got to thinking, you know what? There's still a lot of good people out there that care about old soldiers. I feel like now, a ton of bricks been lifted off my shoulders, like I finally got rid of the hatred.
They treat you like you're an absolute celebrity. You feel amazing. Sometimes I was like, man, I don't deserve this kind of treatment. This is wild. Honor Flight works because it put the veterans first. It puts the veteran where they should have been when they came home from Vietnam or from Korean War. Should glorify them versus ridiculing them. So to get back to the States and have people bidding on you and calling you baby killer, that's ruthless. Honor Flight gives them the welcome home that they never got. And it has a tendency to open you up and give you some clarity. Watch a lot of people change. Yeah, you watch a lot of people change.
I was hesitant. And I was going to use some of my own limitations as an excuse not to go. But you wouldn't allow that. So, thank you. My first sight of the United States. We were above the clouds, and the pilot was letting down below the clouds. Just as we broke out of the clouds, broke out over the top of the Rocky Mountains. They were snow-capped and frozen lakes sitting up in the higher elevations. And my God, it was gorgeous. And, the airplane went from dead silence to a roar when everybody saw that. And for the first sight of home, I don't. The words, Purple Mountain's Majesty, just.
America is my hometown. America is my hometown. America is my hometown. Yes, it is. Yeah. The currency of freedom.
The food was good. Every place we went, we couldn't go anywhere without getting food. We didn't have to worry anything. The only problem is nobody helped me brush my teeth or anything, but that's...
One day I noticed that purple heart he wore. He said it's what they give you when you're wounded in a war. A grenade landed at my feet on that awful day. I took some shrapnel.
I honorably request 31 seconds of my second 5 minutes.
Proud to take a stand when duty calls. The currency of freedom is a soldier's blood. Son, I ain't no hero.
There's some sneaky people in Honor Flight. And when I say sneaky, I'm talking about sneaky good, man. They, green. Everything there is green. Everything is green there. Everything is green.
His life and sacrifice changed what I believe.
You, and you. I got drafted into the Army No, you didn't. You got drafted. Welcome to the Marine Corps, young man.
Glad to know you're here. The old man took me by the arm, said it means so much, you see. All these years you've been my friend. He gave that Purple Heart to me. He said, I'll get some.
Woo! Get a room!
The currency of freedom is a soldier's.
Probably be the best therapy that any soldier went to war and came back could use. Probably the greatest therapy.
Son, I ain't no hero, just doing my job.
It's even hard to understand when somebody's trying to explain it to you. Until you go and see it happen, then you really don't understand. Until you go and see it happen, then you understand.